very happy and healthy new year to everybody. As we start a new year, let's begin it in the right way by thinking about carefully where our happiness and where our health really comes from. And understanding that rather than the external world being the source of where our happiness comes from, rather than consuming, rather than taking from the world being the source of our happiness, let's understand that actually it's what we bring to the world, it's what we are within ourselves that brings happiness. Happiness lies nowhere else other than in yourself. And when we look at what happiness is in terms of our minds, then actually a healthy mind and a happy mind come to exactly the same thing. A healthy mind is happy. An unhealthy mind is unhappy, is stressed or worried or anxious, or the myriad of other difficult emotions which we experience, or difficult experiences physically or mentally we go through. Why is that the case? Why is it so that the mind is so important? Not just from a spiritual point of view, but from a scientific point of view as well. It's undeniably the case that we create our reality with our minds so much more than we realize. We create everything around us. We create the state of the world around us. We create our lives, our houses, our friends. All the state of those things is so much a product of the state of our minds. And when we look at the world around, and we look at the things that we're creating with our minds, or to a large degree creating with our minds, then there is no more close object when we look at external objects than the body. And from this point of view, the body is an external object because it's external to the mind. And therefore, when we look at how we create our reality, one of the things which we're creating all the time, because we're aware of it more than just about anything else in the world, is our own bodies. So it's clear, therefore, that an unhealthy mind, the first thing it's going to do is create an unhealthy body. When a mind is full of stress and anxiety and worry and anger, the results of that sort of difficult, unhealthy emotions is going to be an unhealthy body. This is, again, not just a spiritual thing, it's something which almost universally now, anyone in the medical profession will tell you that the mind is a major thing when it comes to your health. So, the logic, if you like, behind that is because our minds are creating so much of our reality, so much more than we realize. And therefore, when we're talking about looking for where we're going to be healthy, we're actually looking for the same thing as where we're going to be happy. And that means we need to look inside. And we need to go beyond even the sensory levels of our mind, because happiness doesn't lie in what we see or what we hear or what we taste or what we touch or smell. Those are by nature temporary. Any form of pleasure that those things bring is never going to last. It's by nature coming and going. So if we're looking for long-term, real well-being, real happiness within us, we're looking more deeply. We're looking at what we call the mental consciousness, which is where we have our thoughts and we have our emotions and we have our feelings. And when we're looking at that, when we want to work with the mental consciousness, how do we do? How do we start to change that? How do we make that a healthy and happy place to be, and therefore a healthy and happy world which it comes out of it? Our foundation is awareness. We must have awareness, because without awareness there's no understanding of the mind, there's no recognition of the mind, you can't fix a car, for example, when it goes 90 miles an hour down the road. In the same way, you can't look at the mind or start to work with the mind while it's running at 100 miles an hour, going from one thought to another, uncontrollably. So our first step in bringing that health into our minds, and therefore into our lives, is awareness. Awareness of our own minds. And that step itself, although it's only an initial step, is actually a huge benefit to our lives. We can think about it from three different points of view. What does awareness do first? First of all, awareness brings you into the moment. It brings you into the present moment. And a lot of people talk about being in the present moment. What does it really mean to be in the present moment? Why is it so important? The reality is if you're in the present moment, you're alive, you're there. When we talk about meaning or giving purpose to our lives, the first purpose which many people will come up with in living is to be there in your life, is to live. But of course, if you're living in the past or you're living in the future, your mind's constantly, you can be on the floor playing with your children, but you're not playing with your children because you're not there with them. Your mind is somewhere else, and that's not living. That's not living with your children, that's not living with yourself when you don't do it with yourself. So the first advantage of awareness, which we cultivate through very simple and small amounts of meditation, breathing meditation or body scan meditation, very simple meditations, we're cultivating the awareness of our minds, and that allows us to be in our lives in the present moment, much more than we usually are. That's the first advantage. Of course, with that comes focus and concentration as well, which is always useful to have. The second benefit of awareness is that we are able to bring space into our minds. And what does that mean? It means that there's a gap. There's a space when things happen to us and when we react to whatever happens to us. So generally a reaction is that something happens and we act in the same way we always react, often in negative, unskillful ways. And we make the situation worse, we cause distress to ourselves and we cause distress to others. Because we don't see that between whatever happens to us in our lives and our reaction to it or our response to it, there's actually a gap, or there can actually be a gap, where you can say, well, I could do that, as I habitually always do, but I could make a better decision, or I could go a better way. Again, if you have awareness through simple breathing meditation, and it doesn't have to be a lot, 10-15 minutes a day, but it has to be regular, but a small amount of regular meditation will bring this level of awareness into your life. And from that, you gain this incredible ability to choose, to decide, to act skillfully rather than react to the things that happen to you. The third advantage, if you like, of this simple meditation and simple awareness of our own minds is that we start to be the boss of our thoughts rather than the thoughts being the boss of us, which is the way most of us live. A negative thought comes up, a depressed thought comes up, and we become depressed. An anxious thought comes up and we become an anxious person, or a depressed person, or a stressed out person. Why? Because the thoughts are controlling us. And that's not a healthy way to be. It's much more healthy if we can decide. If we can say, well, I like that one, I'll go with that thought, but that one's going to be harmful, so no, you can carry on your way. And again, simple meditation, simple small amount of meditation will lead to that in your life, will lead to that ability for yourself to be in control of the thoughts rather than the other way around, which is so much more healthy. So that's a basis of health in our minds. But of course, on the basis of that, or moving on from that, we then want to think about what it is in our minds which brings health into our minds. What is it which causes us to be unhealthy? And what is it that causes us to be healthy? And when we look at that, you'll find that there are a whole range of emotions that we carry with us. Some are great, some are very healthy, some are very powerful and good and positive thoughts in the world. Love, compassion and things like this are wonderful emotions. But many are not. Many are harmful. Many harm ourselves and harm other people as well. So if we're looking at, for example, anger, jealousy, pride, stress, anxiety, depression, these are harmful emotions. They're things which cause ill health in our minds and therefore manifest as ill health in our bodies. Again, most serious diseases can be attributed to somewhere down the line to these negative states of mind. So our next step, if you like, in working with ourselves is to try and reduce those emotions, to try and let them go. And there are practices which will do that, but in essence what we're doing, rather than fighting those emotions or stopping those emotions, we're just trying to let them go. We're trying to cultivate a sense of acceptance, Acceptance that we have those emotions, acceptance that everything is not perfect. And on the basis of that acceptance, then allowing us to let go of our negative emotions. That's our second step. The final step, which really is health, and really is health in our bodies and in our lives, and has been shown over many thousands of years to be the healing practice, or the ultimate way to heal yourself and to heal others, is to cultivate the strong positive emotions of love and compassion. There is nothing more powerful in the world as far as healing for yourself and others is concerned than love and compassion. Why is that? Because if we think about the opposite, which is the way most of us live our lives, we live our lives separated off, divided. We feel we're isolated, we build a barrier between ourselves and others. And we do this innately to some degree, but we do it also because of our education, and we do it because of our societies, especially our modern societies, where our default position seems to be a distrust of people we meet rather than trusting them. We're almost taught and told that we should be fearful of anybody we don't know, which is very sad, because there are some difficult people in this world, but most people are not. 99% of people are genuine good people. And if our default position is to not trust anybody we don't know, that's very sad. And what it does is it isolates, it separates ourselves off from others. And that brings this negative emotions of anxiety and depression and isolation and so forth. They all arise from that sense of separateness, from that fact that somehow there's me here and the rest of the world out there. But that sense of separateness is completely an illusion. It's completely a fabrication of our minds. And how do we begin to stop that, to begin to reverse that pattern of feeling isolated, of separating ourselves? Well, the thing that's very opposite from that emotion is compassion. Because compassion is coming out into the world. Compassion is feeling with others. Compassion is coming out of this prison of me, I, and allowing yourself to relate and think about others. So when we come to what it really is that heals us, that brings health into our world and brings health into our bodies, when we look at the meditations over the years, the thousands of years, which have cured people from incredibly, from all sorts of diseases, and are still doing so to this day, the meditations that we're looking at, or the mindset that we're looking at, the state of mind we're looking at, is compassion and love. There is no other. And so, whether we're thinking about bringing health into our own lives, or whether we're thinking about being a positive influence in the world, which is in so much in need of that positive influence, it's so much in need, all living beings are so much in need of that. From whatever point of view we're looking, then the most healthy, the most powerful and the most healing type of mind is compassion. Is love and compassion, is coming out of the self, coming out of me, I, my concerns, my needs, and bringing the mind out, expanding the mind out, to break down that barrier between yourselves and another, to break down this sense of isolation and separateness between yourself and others. There is no more powerful way than doing that than with compassion. So, coming into our new year, let's understand really what happiness is, and let's understand really where it comes from and how to cultivate that within our lives. And let's try and bring especially these beautiful emotions of compassion and love more into our lives, and from that bring more health into our bodies and into our lives and to those people around us as well. Let's make this our New Year's resolution. Thank you very much.